All right. Welcome back to the reality show Life Coach podcast. Today, we're going to talk about season 20, episode 3 of The Bachelorette. And with me today, I have a special guest, Chris Hale. Chris, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi. Oh my God. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I am Chris Hale. I am a certified coach instructor. I'm a former dance educator, and I host a podcast called You Need a Coach, Bitch. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, I coach creatives on owning their authority so that they can put their most authentic work and selves out into the world. So, and I it's interesting, I love reality TV, but I have never been like a bachelorette franchise person. So this has been kind of exciting and interesting.
Very. I
Yeah.
was listening to your podcast and you're talking about Queer Ultimatum, you're talking about Selling Sunsets, and I was like, okay, those are on the list and I will have you back because, it changes things when you have a relationship with the show.
Yeah, totally. I actually
Mhm.
it was fun to like not have a relationship with the show. The
Mm.
only episode I'd ever seen was a friend of mine was on one like
What?
ages ago. I think she was like kicked off the first episode.
Probably better for it.
Yeah, or maybe the second, but um yeah, it was like I watched that episode and it was like, and
Mm.
she's gone, but she's gone on to do amazing things
Oh my
since
gosh, I have
then.
to know who it is.
Her name is Kelty Knight.
Hmm.
And I think she worked for she worked for Entertainment Tonight. I don't know what her current gig is, but she also has a podcast called The Lady Gang, and they have
Ooh.
a book out. I mean, she's awesome. Like she was a rockette. My husband danced with her growing up. Yeah.
All of
And
this. I
she was a
love this.
rockette, and then she dated a couple of musicians, and so she had written a book. She had a blog that was like really popular, and she wrote a book called rock stars, rockettes, and rock bottom. Like, yeah, I mean, she's such a cool and interesting person. But yeah, I think it was like one of those things that kind of helped launch her career, which I think,
Amazing.
yeah, I think that happens for a lot of people.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about this. Before we get going, I want to do something super nerdy. My mother-in-law, whose name is also Lynn, is like number one fan of the show right now. So
Oh my
can you
God.
give her a shout out? Because she's gonna watch us on YouTube because she watches us on YouTube. She
Oh
doesn't
my
listen on the
God.
podcast.
Well, Halen, what's up? I'm so excited to be here today. Hope that you enjoy this episode.
Ah, I know she will. Oh my gosh. So we're gonna do show recap and chime in wherever because there's some bits and bobs in this. I'm gonna go fast, but pause me. And then we're gonna get to our coachable moments.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we start out the show. Charity comes in and she's all like apologetic about everything that's been going on. And then she says she can't go on here in the mansion and she's going to whisk them away 2 hours, what, 2 hours south to Oceanside? They're excited probably because the mansion stinks at this point of man. So she's going on a helicopter, she announces, with one of them. And it is Brayden, of course. And
Obviously.
and then they have a bunch of stuff, which I know we're going to discuss from this date and other things with Charity and Brayden. But eventually she gives him the rose on this one-on-one. It was funny. I was like, oh, this is their first date. It feels like they've been dating for ages and we're like, girl, get over this guy. But no, I mean, they've known each other for like 2 weeks and this is their first date.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. I don't think I realized that. You know what? Because I skipped episode 2. I watched episode 1,
Mhm.
but then didn't watch episode 2. And then with the recap, I was like, oh my God, I need to go back.
Yeah, it's like been like 2 or 3 weeks. So
Yeah.
he gets the rose. Then we have this group date with the theme Ken, Ken, you feel the love tonight, which is Barbie themed. I really must know what you think of this date.
I mean, I'm obsessed that it's Barbie themed because I love all
Yes.
things Barbie. And I'm so stoked for the movie coming out. The date was hilarious. Like the Ken costumes, I feel bad for them actually. Like for the majority of
Really?
them. Well, for some of them, their costumes were so
Yeah.
bad. Like the guy that had to be like naked Ken, um, terrible. I mean, that just was not a good look for him. Um, But yeah, I love that they had to write a song. I love that they had to
Yes.
like be creative and some of them couldn't sing, but I felt like they gave it like their all.
They totally gave it their all. And you know what? I've watched many seasons of The Bachelor and Bachelorette. At this point, this is my favorite group date they've ever done.
Really?
Yes, because I just thought it was so fun. And they actually seemed like they were having fun playing dress up, which
Mm,
I don't know. And like the costumes themselves, like weren't serious. Like they're very like glittery and
yeah.
tight and weird.
Tight
So
and weird. Yeah, I think tight and weird is a good explanation.
I don't know. It was just there was something about it, and there was a few standouts in there. But I actually think that John, who had to wear the nude suit or whatever you want to call that, he seemed to be embracing it.
Yeah, he went in. He totally went in. Like he was a good sport. I don't know. It was like, oh my God, you poor guy. But you're right. He was a total good sport about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes they have them in like stripped down in speedos. So this one, I was like, you actually got to wear clothes. Like,
True, true.
cool.
Yeah.
They have their one-on-one time. Sean gets a little bit gloaty, which we may or may not talk about. And then at the
Mhm.
end of the date, we get Dotton gets the rose. And I love him. I think he's a great human, and I hope he sticks around for a while. And then we have this one-on-one date with Warwick. I have never seen anybody so okay, your face right now is the best. You have like
It
I
was
can't even look.
I was the cringiest thing
Hmm.
ever. Just, oh my God. When he was like, yeah, like amusement parks makes me sleepy. Like I was just she was such a trooper though. Like I thought her questions were great. Like she was trying
Yes.
so hard and she was asking such great questions but like it was like she was pulling all the weight on that date. And he was
All of it.
just so not there.
He was like a sullen teenager. Like, yep,
Mm.
sure, yeah. Like his answers just were non-answers. They were like two words.
Yeah, interesting, sullen. Yeah, like to me, it's like he just seems like someone who does not know himself at all,
Mm,
like in any way. And so his answers, I felt like reflected that. Like it's like he's never been asked to think about himself in a
yes.
more curious and like introspective way. Like it seems like it's not his nature and no one's ever asked it of him. And so it felt like he was just really struggling to have anything to say, you know?
Oh, I think you're onto something with that approach because he really did seem stumped. Like
Yeah.
very like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like nobody had ever asked him, what was their question? Like, like basically, what do you bring to a
Oh yeah. What do
relationship?
you bring to a relationship? He's like, I don't know.
Yes.
And then
He's like, I have no
she gave an
idea.
example of herself, like that she's like communicator. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm not good at communication. And we're like, obviously.
I know. And when he said that, though, when he said that, I'm just like, not a good. And she's like, but this is like her number one thing is communicating. Like it's communicating. And he's just like, yeah, that's not my strong suit. Not at all.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. Like if you're there to try to like win this thing, someone's giving you like a clue, right? Of like, this is something that's important to me. It's like
Mhm.
there was a total disconnect
Yeah.
with like
And I
what the
don't,
purpose of that, you know what I mean? It's so interesting.
it is so interesting. And I'd love to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like it might be 1 a.m., 2 a.m. at this time. He
Sure.
might just be like, I don't know.
I don't know though, because like the impression that the other guys, like when they that shot of them talking about him and like nobody had anything to say about him. So it feels like it's in line with his character, like with who
True.
he is, to sort of like be a bit reticent and sort of removed and shy. But
Mhm.
like you're on a date, like it's time to bring whatever you got to bring.
Yes.
Everyone's got something to bring. He brought nothing.
Something. Like even just rambling where everybody's like, I don't know what
Yeah.
you're talking about. But no, he was
Right.
just like, oh, my turn to talk. Oh God. Oh God, what do I
Yeah.
say?
Oh,
Like,
it's
poor
sad.
guy. I hope he has answers for those questions now. Like watching it back, I hope he's just like, oh, this is what I would have said, which most of us would do after that. Would be like, oh, I
Yeah.
just choked,
Yeah.
but this is what I would have said, and I don't even know. So he does not get the rose, shockingly. And this is one of those moments where it's interesting because you see the one-on-one dates side by side, and Brayden does get the rose and he does not, and she's obviously decisive when she has no emotions towards somebody.
Yeah.
So she decisively did not give him the rose. Nobody is surprised. And then we have the rose ceremony at the end. She is cutting. Like, this is very fast for her to be cutting people because
Oh,
she went
really?
from 25 down to 10 in week 3. Like, I don't know what's about to happen or how long the show is going to run. I think through the end of August, but we'll see because with just 10 men remaining, like, that's a lot of screen time for very few people, and not all of them she seems into.
So is that like a not a normal, like how many are they normally down to at this point?
At this point, there might still be like 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she's like, cut, cut, cut. Or obviously, producers are like, no, cut, cut, cut. But she sent home Aaron S., James, and Adrian, and of course, Warwick. So
Right.
wild,
I was not
wild.
feeling Aaron S. His energy that this whole episode was so aggressive and like angry. I
Yes.
Yeah, it was not like not a
Well,
good
he made
look.
that comment about like what a real man is. And it
Oh
was
my
like
God.
somebody who windsurfs and hunts, or I don't know. I was like, I'm like, why do we only get 2 options? And like the 2 options are weird. It was like, oh, he's giving her the country club option, but I could give her the hunting, fishing, windsurfing option. It was very strange.
It was very strange. I think I like wrote like Aaron S. toxic masculinity. Like it was just like, oh, like it was just and it wasn't even just that. That was like probably the worst part of it, but it was just like the way he was thinking about everything and the way he was like so mad
Mhm.
in in a way that's like I understand like this is going back to I guess Sean, right, with the date.
Yeah. Should we
Or
jump into coachable moments? I feel like we're
yeah,
ready to
let's do it.
rip.
We're just like
Let it rip. Let's go. I was like, okay, I'm going to mark this moment of time. Like, okay, continue on.
yeah, well, it's just like, what he did was like was not cool, but like and I understand having feelings about it, but like he was so aggressively mad that it's just like it felt inappropriate. Like you could express your feelings in a different way. Like I feel like some of the other ones, I can't remember who it was, but he was expressing his feelings about it. Like, yeah, that wasn't cool. Like he took time from the
Mhm.
rest of us. Like it was just more measured, right? Like in terms
That
of
might have been Dotton, but you're totally right because
hmm,
Aaron S was just like, I feel like there's it's almost like a divide in the house. Like some of the men feel like they have to make sense of things by attacking other people, and other
mhm.
people are just like, yeah, other people are doing things, but I'm here to do my thing, and my thing is to pursue charity. So,
Oh, yeah. Well, that actually, I think, kind of brings us to like the motivations, right?
mm,
Like everyone, right? Because it's like, what are people's motivations? We don't really know exactly what everyone's motivation is. And I think that, like, yeah, some of them are more focused on her and like doing what they need to do. And other ones are more focused on like the scarcity aspect of it or what they're not going to get to do or what they're not going to get out of it.
yeah. Well, is there anybody in particular you wanted to talk about their motivations and your take on it?
Well,
Anyone? Anyone in particular?
I think, well, it's like Aaron B and Brayden both. It's like that's
Yes.
like both of them. I think speaking about both of their motivations. Yeah, I think I don't know which one should we start with?
Let's start. I mean, Brayden's the obvious pick just because he was the first date. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird when like so many episodes just center around one person and it's not the lead. It feels like it's very centered around Brayden. At least this, like the thread throughout all of them seems to be him.
Yeah, well, it was I thought he was a weird pick, honestly, in
Mm,
the first episode. Like I didn't expect that like that.
yeah.
I don't know why. It came out of it was surprising for me. And
Mm.
so to me it felt weird that like he has been such the center of everything, but I guess she's really into him. Um I know like pre this we were kind of talking about like his sharing, right? His sharing on the date about like his breakup and his like fears and trepidation. And I don't know, like on one hand, I think like he is being honest. And then you kind of was saying like maybe he's being manipulative, and it's like, aren't they all kind of being manipulative?
Yeah.
Isn't like that feels like that's what's so hard to kind of suss out about motivations, because it feels like
Yeah.
it's hard to tell again like who's there because they are actually looking for a partner, who's there because they just want to win,
Hmm.
right? And who's there because it gives them access to the public in a way that's going to benefit them.
Yeah. Like what you were talking about before with your friend.
Yeah.
Totally. Like, of
Yeah.
course, of course.
Yeah.
Um, I think, and this is where I get torn because I was watching the episode back today. I'm like, what is it about Brayden? And obviously, some of this is coming out in the editing, some of it's coming out with
Mhm.
all the other people in the house narrating what they think is happening. And obviously,
Yeah.
that's coloring our opinion. But there's something about his approach where it's hard for me just to see it at face value. Like, oh, here's somebody
Mm.
that's trying to be honest about like, yeah, of course. Like it is a little bit far-fetched for, somebody especially like I think he's 24, not to say somebody's not ready to get married or be in a serious relationship at 24, but I certainly wasn't at that point. Um, but I mean, I think he's like speaking honestly about his experience of like, I don't know if I could get married at the end of this.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about dating somebody who's dating this many other people openly. I don't know. There's still something that like sits off for me about his approach to this.
Mm. Is it the questioning of it, or is it the way that he's presenting it?
I feel like it's a little bit I feel like he's trying to and he even says this at one point, like, shape Charity's expectations of him. Like, I feel like it's
Oh,
almost
he
controlling.
did
Maybe
say that. You're right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a little bit of like a but that yeah, that felt a little like people pleasy, a
mm,
little like, I'm trying to control how she thinks about me. But again, they're all trying to do that. Like Aaron B is
right,
like literally doing the I'm here to protect. I feel like I need to like you don't need to protect her. Like,
right, right. Well, and yeah, and maybe this is where because on the one hand, I see exactly what Brayden's saying, but
yeah.
he is painted to be this bit of a villain. So there's a part of me that wants to jump on that bandwagon and just be
Yeah.
like, is what he's doing wrong or right? And maybe we don't need to decide, and maybe we don't have to decide if it's right or wrong.
Yeah, I don't think we have to decide if it's right or wrong. I mean, I think like the coachable moments in there are like for like individually, like for all of them individually, it's like Brayden, his coachable moment is like, it's not your responsibility to try to control someone else's emotions, right?
Mm,
So, like, what is real for you? Like, tell her what's real for you, but like, and let her decide, instead of trying to like, well, I just want you to know, like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Like, but what is real? It's like, are you really not ready for it? Or are you still on the fence? Or are you in for this? But it's like he's not committing. He's like, yeah, I really want to be here, but I don't know. So he's not really committing to either side. And it's okay to be confused, but then say I'm confused and let it lie. And then she gets to decide what she wants to do with that. And I think you're right. In there, it ends up feeling a little manipulative because he won't just let her have her feelings and her experience because he's trying to get in there.
mhm. Yeah. No, I think you're right. There's a way to do it where you're taking personal responsibility and just being like, this is where I'm at.
Yes.
But I think where it gets blurry is when he's like, "But I'm really trying and I'm here for you and I'm trying and I stayed and all of this."
Yeah.
That's the part that feels super graspy. That's the part that seems like he is trying to make her think a certain way of him, that he's more ready than he actually is. Because if we just put
Yes.
it down on paper, he is not ready.
No, you're so right.
He's not ready. And like,
Yeah.
it's okay. Um, it's totally okay. And yeah, I think it's like all around personal responsibility there for him. What would you say is like Charity's coachable moment here?
Hmm. I mean, I feel like her biggest coachable moment came at the end with her personal drama around whether or not she was going to keep Brayden, because she was sort of in this confusion of like, I don't know how I'm going to feel like if I let him go. And I don't know if I'm
Mm.
going to be okay if he stays. And it's like, well, you get to decide to be okay either way and have your own back around it. So I think that that almost is kind of an overarching lesson for her, I think, with all of this, because she's still very much in the space with all of them where she's giving them the power to help her decide how she feels.
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. She is, because it's like this hyper vigilance whenever she's in these group dates of like, tell me how to feel about you. Tell me how to feel about the other people here. Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of
Yeah.
her and I it's like I saw it throughout, um, like on her date with Dotton, and she was like, you know, no one's ever spoken to me about myself like this before. And it's very much this like she's looking for them to, I don't know, validate, approve,
Mhm.
some signal from them that they're the one or whatever, instead of like trusting herself, like letting them be there at face value, you know, and then like trusting herself. And then it came up in the end when she's like, well, I don't know how I'm gonna feel. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
you like what we teach our clients is like you make a decision and then you have your own back around it.
Yeah.
You know,
And
so
the
you let him go, and if you feel bad about it, that's fine, but, like, have your own back around it.
yeah. Well, and I was thinking about this because I was reading your notes ahead of time. I was thinking about this in context, like I was listening to your podcast where you're talking to Deb Malkin about like not rushing. Like if you're having a moment
Mm, mhm.
and like you're in the thick of it, it's okay. Like you don't need to rush out of that. You could have the luxury of just being in your stuff. And
Yeah,
her decision around this could totally be, I'm also confused. I also don't know. But it's not your job, Aaron B. It's not your job, other men in the house, to tell me that this guy needs to go because there's red flags. If I'm not sure, I'm going to make my own personal decision and have my own back about keeping him, even if you don't like it. And you say that says something about my character. F
yeah.
you. Like, screw you.
Yeah, it's really interesting to watch her go back and forth between being very sure of herself, you know, and, like, knowing who
Yeah.
she is and what she wants, and then deferring to other people, like, for instance, Aaron B, where they'd already had the conversation. She and Brayden had already had the conversation. He was already honest with her. Like, why would it be a problem that he's also saying it's that's actually consistent,
Hmm.
right? It's
He was, yeah.
sorry, little frog in my throat. But yeah, like
Yeah.
it's consistent behavior for him to her face say, I don't know how I feel about these things. And then in the house to say the same thing to the other guys, that's actually consistent behavior. So I don't know why that would be a problem. That,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? And so, but then she's like looking to Aaron B, who's like, I just have to take care of you. And she's like, you know, he's saying this and it's just worrying me. And it's like, this was solved
This is
already.
not new news. Not
Yeah,
new news. Yeah. And I think this could have been a non-issue for her. She could have just been like,
I
"Thank
agree.
you for letting me know."
Yes.
Great. And this is the part where I'm like, what part of you is latching on to this?
Hmm.
Because this isn't like, feeding your inner knowing about the situation. This is the part of you that is doubting. This is the part of you that is scared. This is the part of you that wants to hear these things. Says you don't want to outwardly, but you kind of do. Like she's finding it.
Yeah, like, why do you think she let that impact her so greatly?
I I feel like there's more to the story in
Mm,
this, and there always is, but I'm wondering if there is somewhat of a fear where, like, some of these men are more expressive with their emotions than others, and Brayden is at the forefront of this, and she knows how he feels sort of, but then
yeah,
you have other people, like, where she had just sent home Warwick. There might be this concern that, like, what if other people feel the same way as Warwick, where he couldn't give a damn about even making a impression on me? Like, what if I don't know, like, it's almost like that scarcity and fear of like, oh gosh, now I have to grasp a little bit more. Or I don't know. What do you think it is? Like,
Yeah, I don't know. Because that I didn't even think about, like, I mean, I was thinking about it in the sense that like it was already settled. But when you said like this could have been a non-issue, like I don't, for some reason that like clicked in my brain in a different way, that I'm like, yeah, this, it could have been a non-issue and she made it an issue. And I was blaming Aaron B, but like it's
yeah,
not his, like, I mean, he was
no,
being a dick. Like, let's be honest. Like that
yeah,
was self-serving.
yes.
Like it was not about protecting her. His motivation was all about him. And still, she could have made the decision to not make it a problem. And so, yeah, it's like, what? I don't know. Has she had sort of a history of like creating drama where there isn't drama
Not at this point in
at
the
this point?
show, and
Yeah.
even, like, they carry over people from other seasons. She
Right.
wasn't somebody that created drama before. I don't know, it's interesting, and, like, maybe this is something that, you've noticed for yourself a crossroads, but I noticed for myself, it's always this crossroads of I could create drama about this, so stuff in my personal life, or I could make it a non-issue, and it's almost like she isn't seeing, like, "Oh, I have options here." It's just this information's presented, and of course it's an issue. It's like she's a very aware person, like,
She
in my
is.
opinion.
Yeah.
So, there's something about this in particular where she doesn't see that she gets an option of whether or not to make this an issue and blow it up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like that question, why is this a problem?
Mm,
And
yeah,
that's not coming up for her. It was just taken at like and like at face value and
yeah,
maybe even feeding off. This is where I think like it's interesting sometimes she's not grounded in herself because she allowed his energy to influence where she was at instead of like holding strong in her own self.
yes, yeah, yeah. That's where, and I do wonder if it's, like, mattered who it came from. Like,
Mm,
this is the guy she went on her first one-on-one date with, had a
yeah,
good
she
time
said, I
with it.
trust him. Like, I really trust
Yes.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, when you're in a situation where you lack people to trust and you're not sure who to trust, I mean, maybe she just was like, "I should listen to this because this is coming from a respected source versus somebody in the house who I'm about to kick off the show anyway, who might be doing, like, a bit quick attention grab to stay."
Yeah, that's so interesting because like we really do have to consider the context, which like I don't think I was thinking about at all, like that those dynamics. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be in a situation like that where you don't know any of these people and you very quickly, not because you have to, because I think this goes back to what you were talking about before, is like give yourself the luxury of time, right? Of like sitting with
Yeah.
something and allowing yourself to like listen to your body and see how your body is reacting and responding to people. But like from like a primitive perspective, it's like I need to figure out who in this space is trustworthy. It's almost like Survivor.
It really
Like
is almost like that. It really is.
like what are the alliances?
Yes.
Who can I trust here? It just we don't see it that way because it's not life or death or whatever
Right.
is going on in
Right.
Survivor.
But it
But
seems
like
like a tiger's in the room.
totally. And so yeah, it would make sense that she would weigh his opinion more heavily, especially if she's a little freaked out by what's going on with Brayden, which I do want to talk about because
Yeah, let's do.
she, on one hand, is saying, I want honesty. But then when he's being honest, it's freaking her out because it's not exactly what she wants to hear, right? She wants to hear that he's all in.
Right.
Like that's really what she wants to hear. And she's not hearing that. And so then she's like freaked out, but like he's giving you what you want. Like you want open
Yeah.
communication. You
Yeah.
want someone who, like, and this is where it's, I don't know if this is like, I don't know. This is an interesting thing with like talking about the emotional intelligence of the guys, like because I think a lot of times we can't handle like pushing against the programming that like men should not show their feelings, you know? And so I think like when you're in that situation, when like she could be in this situation where it's like intellectually she wants it, but then when a man's actually there in front of her, being really honest and open about his feelings, she's like, wait. Like, especially if it's not what she wants to hear. And then it's like, and he's being emotional. I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, I 100% agree with you. Like, she's coming with her own agenda. I want to hear that you're here for me, and I need it. I need your emotional investment to match mine, which is
Mhm.
we're excited about each other. We have chemistry.
Yeah.
And out in the real world, she'd probably be like, yeah, okay, let's go on 3 or 4 dates and see how it goes. Let's see if we're both ready for marriage and kids and all that jazz or whatever. I mean, which is what she has expressed coming on the show that she wants. But when they come into the situation and yes, he says something different than that, she's like, well, this doesn't fit into my box. Like, I don't know how to, what sense to make out of this.
Yeah.
And then she's getting the feedback like, hey, you should probably let him go
Mhm.
because he doesn't want the things you've expressed that you wanted. But there's that part of her that's like, no, but I'm still trying to make him fit into my box. I'm still
Yeah.
like trying to hear what I want to hear, even if he's not saying what I want to hear. But you're absolutely right. Like she has said she wants honest. It's just that she's not listening with an honest ear to
Mm.
hear what he's actually saying.
Oh, I love that. She's not listening with an honest ear. How often do we all do that?
All day, every day. I mean, that's why
Like
coaching's so helpful.
it really is like to be able to and that I think that would be the thing to point out to her, right? In a session would be like, okay, like these are the words that he's saying and what are you making them mean? And why aren't you hearing them for exactly what they are? You know, and because I
Yeah.
think you're right. I think she's making meaning out of them or having a hard time digesting them because they're not in alignment with what she wants to hear. And so there's a story going on there somewhere
Mhm.
that we'd have to uncover of like, okay, what's under this?
Yeah, I agree too. And like, I don't know, one thing in a coaching session I might do is do like a compare and contrast. Like, what's the difference between
Mm,
Warwick and Brayden? With Warwick, it was very easy for you to make a decision what you wanted to do. He's saying things that don't line up with what you want. We're also seeing that with Brayden. He's also saying things that
yeah,
don't line up. So what's the difference? And she might be able to be like, oh, it's the emotional piece. Like it's
right.
there's some part of me that's driving this forward, even though he's putting on the brakes over and over and over again. Like it might help to see that contrast. I know it helps me in both as a coach and as a client when I can see the two next to each other and do a compare and contrast and be like, oh, okay, that's interesting that the circumstances are very similar here, but yet my
Mhm.
response is different.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that's so important because we don't see it right when we're inside of it. Like we need someone to kind of point out that like we've got similar situations because they don't seem similar
Yeah.
in our brains, right?
In our
Like we don't
brains.
we
Yeah.
don't see that like, oh, these two people are exhibiting behaviors that are kind of similar, and yet you're having a different response to them. And so what is it? Is like what are you thinking about each of them? How are you feeling? What are
Yes.
you paying attention to? What are you not paying attention to?
Ooh, all of those things. Cause I mean, she went into both dates with a very different mindset. With Brayden, she was like, I need to see what the truth is behind this guy versus, oh,
Mm,
let's get open and curious. We've only known each other a couple of weeks. Let's see if we still have a lot in common. Versus with Warwick, she was like, he's cute. I don't know about a lot about him. Let's go find out. And if she
yeah.
had approached both with that mindset of like, hey, let's just go find out, it would
Yeah,
have
it's like
been different.
I think she said something at one point of like, I wanna trust the chemistry that we have, right? About Brayden. Like we have fun together and I want to trust the chemistry that we have. So yeah, she totally went in with an
Mm,
agenda. Like for
hmm
sure
Oh,
that she
100%.
that she didn't have, right? Like she wasn't being curious. She like wants that, like she wants to be able to like trust herself. But
Yeah.
I feel like in doing that, she's not really allowing herself to hear herself or feel
Yeah.
herself so she can trust herself. It's like she's doing the opposite.
She is. Yeah, totally. Well, and I do wonder to what extent have you already painted the picture of you two on the altar at the end,
Mm-hmm.
or as one of the people at the, because then it's like, and then it's hard to like erase that after you've drawn the nice picture of the two of you in a house together. Um,
Yeah.
because she's trying to get it to fit some sort of narrative that she seems to have already created around it.
Oh, that's so good. That is
Yeah.
so good. I feel like so many people need to hear that,
Yeah.
you know? Like, what are you trying to it's like you're trying to force something because you've already decided how you want it to end. And so you can't take in any information that's contrary to that. But then you're not really basing your decision on all of the facts because
Right.
you're not letting them in.
Yeah. And I think that's why she got so like upset after she had that conversation with Aaron B, because she's like, this is not a part of the narrative. This was supposed to be
Yeah.
our private conversations that we had about your self doubt. And it bothers me that you're telling this to other people because
Right.
this is supposed to be us. And you weren't supposed to tell them all
Mm.
of these other things. Like, I feel like that's the part she's mad about. She's like, why are you going around telling people that you don't want to date a woman that dates 20 other men? Like, that was
Oh,
us.
yeah. I never thought about it like that.
It's I was just trying to decide what she's mad about, and it's not
Uh-huh.
like, because everything is out in the open. He's already said all the things. What is she actually mad
What is
about?
she actually mad about? Yeah, like, and that you're right, because like that's like she knows it. It's consistent behavior from him. And yeah, maybe that feels like a betrayal in some way, like of the
Yeah.
confidence that they shared, or like maybe she's upset that he's open. I don't know why she would be upset that he's open with other
Yeah.
people. That doesn't, I don't
Yeah,
know.
if
That doesn't,
anything, it just proves that he's open with people.
right.
Like,
Right.
"Oh, I
Yeah.
want an honest, communicative person, and look, here's more like, it's so
Like
funny
he
how she
can't
could look
shut
for
up.
evidence.
Like,
Right, right. It's like, you could find evidence of this one thing that you want, but yet you find evidence of why it's not gonna work out, and that's kinda where her brain is at.
yeah, that's
Aw.
totally true.
Oh my gosh. Any other thoughts on this, like, Brayden charity thing?
You know, I it's so funny because I found myself so like I think it was because of how it happened. If she
Yeah.
had decided to not keep him, like if Aaron B hadn't gotten in there
Mhm.
and she had decided to not keep him, I would have been 100% fine with that.
Yes.
Like I would have been totally fine with it. Um because it would have felt like she was making that decision like from an internal locus of control and it would have
Mhm.
felt empowered, you know? But I found myself getting so riled up and mad when it was like, is she gonna keep it? Is she not gonna keep it? And I'm like, fuck Aaron. Like I was so mad about it. And I don't know what like
And
I don't know
yeah.
why. Like I don't it's like I never get that riled up about these kinds of things with shows. Like I get like, a little bit mad, but like this, I was like pacing my living room. Like, are you kidding me? Is she really not going to keep him? Because like I was so mad about it.
Yeah, because she'd already made the decision to give him the rose.
Yeah.
And I really don't think that was manufactured by the producers. I really think that she was like, "Oh, now I'm second guessing because I should be because somebody told me I should be second guessing this."
And I think too, because it's like I did feel bad for the other guys because this is like
Yeah.
time that's being wasted on a thing that was already decided. And like you're telling me you're not thinking about the way that this is going to impact the evening,
Right.
like and everyone else's opportunity to like have like make an impression on her. I mean, I just thought it was so selfish. And I was like, the producers can literally not let her send them like him home. Like I had to like convince myself that like this was dramatic enough and like good enough TV that like the
Oh.
producers would be like, no, he can't leave. Like because I was like, I just couldn't stand the idea that like that he would have been sent home for that. I don't know why. It was maddening to me.
Yeah, it was maddening. There's just so many different angles, and usually usually when I watch this, I'm like, "Oh, this is very cut and dry. This is the storyline. This is this." And I was like, I kept going back and forth and back and forth. I'm like, "What does this all mean?" Um,
Mhm.
but it's not clean. Like, and that's, I mean, and maybe it's not supposed to be when we're
Yeah.
looking for love.
No, I don't think it is. It never is. And we
No.
want it to be like neat and tidy.
Mhm.
And I think this is a really good example of like how it's not neat and tidy. Um, the other thing is like it's so wild to me, like this many dates and this much like I feel like it gets really intimate really quickly. I
Yeah.
was like, I was a bit taken aback by like how much like kissing was going on. I'm like, there must be some level of implied consent here because it feels so, or maybe it's just the way it's edited, but it just feels so quick that like
Yes.
that it's all of a sudden she's like making out with a guy that like she doesn't know at all. Or like Sean like grabbing her
Yeah.
during the lip sync and kissing her like in front of everyone. I was like, this is
Yes.
ballsy and like, whoa. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
an aspect of the show that I think was like a little bit like, I don't know, it like was
Yeah.
not off-putting, but like it just kind of made me go like, oh, this is so weird. Like
It's jarring, isn't it?
yeah, it was jarring. It was
Yeah.
jarring. Is
It's
it
ju yeah.
always like that?
It is. And that's the part where I'm like, "What is happening here?" But yeah, it's they have all these rules that
Yeah.
only exist in the Bachelor world, and it is just like the lead is probably gonna kiss all of you at some point unless they really don't like you.
Yeah.
And if somebody it's almost like if somebody tells you a little bit of drama, you have to follow the lead, even if
Right.
you think it's a non-issue. Like, I don't know, there's, like, so many different types of words, ways of saying things I have to do, and it's like, they're almost expected to, like, just fall in line
Yeah. The
and,
other thing it
like,
makes me think
perform.
about too is like in terms of if we go back to like what are we trusting in terms of what we're
Mhm.
experiencing, like if you're all in this like house, you're away from all other people, right? Like it's like all these guys and one girl,
Yeah.
she's going on all these dates, like what is the feeling we're really having here? Like it seems a little lusty. Not like,
Very.
right, like not like secure and like interest and curious and like all those things at the beginning, like right where you'd
Mhm.
have time to kind of create connection, um and create like trust and respect, where you actually get to know a person
Yeah.
for real, get to know them, because like you can have chemistry with anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are like, I think that's why it also becomes really confusing because it's like, well, yeah, I could kiss a lot of guys and feel really good about it.
Right.
But like I don't doesn't necessarily mean I wanna marry any of them.
Right. Yes. 100% yes. That's I mean, it's been I don't know, when I first started watching this show, I'm like, "What is happening here?"
Yeah,
Always, always.
always.
Oh my gosh. Was there anything else that stood out to you where like, I love that you're watching this kind of for the first time. Like, what else, if anything?
Um, yeah, I think the only thing really is that, like, at the end of the day, it's a game, and
Yes.
I think we lose sight of that. And I don't know, maybe because I understand how television is made, like, it's not real, like, you know what I mean? And so, it's interesting to watch myself get so, like, invested in it
I know.
when I know, like, when I was having that fight with myself of like, well, let's think about it. Are the producers really gonna let him go home? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because like the one side of my brain knows that like there's so much that's manufactured,
Yeah.
and planned and scripted. And then there's a whole other half of it that's just really not. And I think it messes with your head. Or at
Mhm.
least it messed with my head because I'm thinking about those aspects of it. Like I'm not just enjoying it as like, oh, this is entertainment. Like I'm thinking about like what's going on behind the scenes and what's being
Yes.
calculated and like, and I feel this way about this person, but like, can I, and so it was like,
I
it's a,
know.
a really interesting. it was interesting watching myself watch it, essentially.
That's essentially, yes. I mean, and that's kind of one of the reasons I created this show because I was like, I just can't turn off my brain when I watch this. Like, I just can't turn it off. And,
Yeah.
but it's also fascinating to me how many times I'll watch stuff like this and take things like that I actually find helpful. Like, it's weird to
Mm,
me. Like, I'll watch somebody have like a quality experience on the show or they'll do things.
yeah.
And I wish I had an example to pull from this right now. But it's just like fascinating to me that I'm like, oh, this is just trashy TV,
Yeah.
but where I'll actually pull something that's useful in my day-to-day life. And again, I wish I had an example, but I can't think of something right now.
I mean, I think like watching it through the lens of like, are there coachable moments? Like just seeing, I think one moment of like just really seeing the scarcity from all the guys.
Mm,
Like there's such a scarcity thing going on of like, am I going to get enough time with her to make an impression on her? Right. Like
yeah.
you can just
Yeah.
see
It's
that like really playing heavily into the whole dynamic. Um,
yeah, their behaviors match that 100%.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I think that's one thing to like, if you, if I could tell any of them, right? Just
Yes.
like relax, like
Yes.
you're going to get the time that you get and be yourself and don't try to like manufacture a situation where you're not going to be real because you want to get at her because that's going to turn her off, right?
Yeah.
It's just like I feel like that's such a big for any and all of them. Like for this, just with this format, I could imagine that it comes up a lot that there is this like I
Hmm.
need to get my shot and I'm afraid I'm
Yes.
not going to get it.
Yeah.
And it's like relax. And if you don't get it, you're not supposed to get it. But also, the more relaxed you are, the more like inviting and enticing you are.
You give off that energy.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day about this. I was like, okay, definitely want to bring you on for one of the shows that you're like, and I have a lot of thoughts about these other shows. If somebody wanted to find you online, where would
Yes.
they go looking?
You can find me on Instagram. My handle is the only Chris Hale, or my website is theonlychrishale.com. And you can listen to my podcast wherever you find podcasts.
Yes. And say
Yay.
the name again because it's the best name of the podcast ever.
You need a coach, bitch.
And it is so good. I love it. I'm a new listener, but now a regular listener because I was like, I have to know more about your life. Well,
Oh,
thank you, Chris, so much for coming on the show today. It's been such a delight to get to know you and to hear your take on all things Bachelorette.
thank you for having me.
Yay. Okay.